All right, we've learned how to make if statements with relational operators that give us more control over what we get to decide is going to happen. So we can now use a range of values in order to control that snippet of code that goes in between those curly braces on the if statement. But so far, we've always run that line of code after the ending curly brace. And no matter what happens with the inside of the code, we can't change whether or not that code runs after the curly brace. Now we're going to be able to get to choose that. So instead of just having an on and off, we can have an either or relationship. Let's go ahead and look at how we do that. So we're going to use that with the else statement. So today we're going to talk about else. So far, we've been able to run if some statement is true. So if a condition, and then we've run our statement. So then we say, then run code, right? But so far, we haven't been able to go on. So now we have a new key term, and this is another reserved word called else. So now, if this evaluates to false, we're now going to run our else statement. Oops, let me get that to look right. There we go. So we're going to say otherwise run this. Okay, so let's look at our trace here. So if this is true, we're going to run this code. And what will happen is once we run this code, we're going to jump outside of this and run all the way to the bottom of the last curly brace. If this evaluates to false, so if this is false here, we're going to skip this code and we're going to find our else statement and jump inside our else and run this code. Once we're done with that code, then we also go to the end of the last curly brace. So here, if this condition is true, then we run our first code. If it's false, then we run our second line of code, which now gives us the ability to make quick decision trees. We also have another tool than the else. So the else gives us just one option, but what if we want to check multiple options? A great example of this is a grade. So let's say we create an integer of grade, and I want to check if it's an A, B, C, or D. So let's give it a value of, let's go ahead and say 90, because we have a good student here. We're getting 90%. And we are then going to write our if statement. So if our grade is greater than or equal to 90, then we can go ahead and we can do an out.println. I'm just skipping the system in front of there just for expediency here. And I can go ahead and print A. Now, if I want to check for a B, with my simple else statement, I couldn't do that. I can only check for A and B, but what if I want to check for more? We can use this. We can say else, and then we add our keyword if after that, and we can check another condition. So if our first condition isn't true, it's going to go and check the next condition in order. So if our grade is now greater than or equal to 80, we can now say that our grade is B. Println, there we go, is a B. And we can continue on. And we can put as many else ifs as we need to. Else if grade is greater than 70, or greater than or equal to 70, we can say out.print, and we'll say is a C. Okay, so now let's go ahead and say that we printed out our grade for D. Oops, didn't need to draw that. So if we printed out our grade for D, and at the end of it, we can put a simple else. Else. And we can say out.println failing. So we can have these chains of else ifs, and at the end put a simple default value of else and put it as whatever the default value for that decision tree would be. Think about this for a moment, why I didn't have to put a range of values for the grade. Sometimes that trips students up, but think about it for a moment. I don't actually have to put a range of values. I only have to put the lower boundary for each grade in order for this decision tree to print out the correct grade. Take a moment to think about why that is. Trace out the code if you need to figure that out. So that is our simple if and else if relationship and our ability to make much more complex decisions using relational operators and our else ifs. All right, I will see you guys in the next one.